York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
Frosty the snowman was a jolly happy soul, with a corncob pipe and a button nose and two eyes made out of coal. Frosty the snowman is a very
What's up, guys? The 12 Days of Fitness podcast. We're bringing back all our classic podcasts we've ever done. And in today's episode, day 8, we have a contest prep roundtable discussion with good old Jeff Nippard. New York Muscle Radio is flooding your podcast feed. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Pete Kacharian. If you're a new listener, you've just stumbled upon the best fitness radio show ever. Big guy, what's going on, man?
We're bringing back we're bringing back a topic that we haven't really touched on too much lately. It's been a while since we've kind of been on the competitive
Because no one wants to
physique
compete anymore.
stage. Yeah, you know what's so true? I was telling you this the other day. Instagram, for the longest time, with the fitness industry and community on Instagram, everyone wanted to just put two things by their name. They wanted to put either IFBB Pro or NPC competitor. Everyone wanted to be known as a competitor. Now, nobody gives a shit. Everyone wants to be fitness entrepreneur. That's the new thing now.
Exactly. Everybody wants to sell T-shirts and go to Forbes Top 100.
Yeah, it's all about that fitness entrepreneur lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, we live in New York, and it sucks here weather-wise. So it was like 20 degrees yesterday.
Yeah.
It's 60 degrees today.
I know,
and
it was crazy. It was
and
so
tomorrow's
warm.
supposed to be 30.
Yeah, of course. It was so warm today. I was walking around in a T-shirt for a little while today.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is that when you do that, that's how you get sick.
I know.
That's the problem. It's like you still have to – it's weird. Because it's winter, you still have to bundle up. Because if you don't bundle up, that's definitely how you're getting sick.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get sick tomorrow. I'm going to wake up with a fever.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little under the weather myself. I don't know what the hell happened. I was fine all day, and then all of a sudden I just started feeling it. I don't know. But I got something special for our trending topics today, and that's what I'm going to go to later, so that should help me. But, well, I don't want to jump ahead here.
I'm excited.
You're excited to hear about it?
I am, because like everybody else listening to this podcast, I have no idea what's going to come next. You know, you would think that if I'm the co-host, I have an idea of what's going on. I have no idea.
You got the easy job, man. You just jump on and just have a conversation with me. I'm the one who has to plan out the conversation, shut you up when you go overhand too much.
That is the job of the host.
Yes, that is the job of the host. All right, guys, remember, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/video. Subscribe, because come New Year, we're going to have a lot of cool stuff on that as well. And don't forget to check out our December sale, which is our entire New York Muscle Radio library at a sweet discounted price, plus 1 bottle of caffeine with free shipping. So go ahead and pick that up, NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. Big guy, what else is going on in your life, man?
Just gearing up for Christmas, man. Everything else is always the same on my end. It doesn't matter what it is, what time of the year it is. I always like to keep things consistent and the same. I'm very, what's the word? What's the term for that? I like to keep everything the same all the time. Why am I drawing a blank? What is that called? I'm a creature. I'm a creature of habit, I guess you could say. You could put it like that. Huh?
Dumb?
Huh?
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 Yeah, I mean, creature of habit, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We're a little off today, guys, if you haven't noticed.
That's because we haven't had any caffeine today, man. We're both tired. We're both halfway sick. I got a headache. He's coming down with the flu.
No, I took my flu shots. I ain't getting the flu.
Good man.
Let's move on to the trending topics, because I really think that this will help everyone here. So I stumbled across this, and actually, I'm lying. My sister stumbled across this, and I tried it, and it was actually really good. And supposedly it helps you, like, ward off being sick or whatnot. I don't know how true that is, but we'll find out tonight when I use it. But so basically, it's apple cider vinegar tea. So it's really, really good. It sounds weird, but it's really good. It's 1 cup of warm water, or whatever. You fill up the cup of warm water. 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 dash of cayenne pepper. Dude, it really was good.
Really?
And it's supposed to, like, detox. I don't know what it's supposed to, but it's tea. So basically it's tea. So you're going to help you. And you have an option of adding in 1 tablespoon of honey
I was gonna say I've heard that recipe before, but it had honey in it. That's what I was gonna mention. I don't.
But I've
really-
used it without the honey to
Yeah.
save on the carbs, and it was
Yeah.
really good, man. It was like surprisingly good.
Interesting.
The cayenne pepper, believe it or not, it sounds like it doesn't fit in that mix. It actually gives it like a good kick. It's weird. It's really good.
Yeah, I wonder why the pepper's in there. What do you think the purpose of that is?
Well, I guess the pepper. I mean, whenever you have cayenne pepper, it heats up your body a little bit.
Mhm.
So I
I
would
guess it's
assume.
supposed to keep your body warm then.
Yeah.
Supposed to
I don't
help
know.
with
It was
that.
good though. It was really good.
Interesting. It's a good tip for anybody who might be coming down with the cold right now. Instead of
Yeah,
grabbing
some-
the emergency, grab the apple cider vinegar, guys.
I know. I like emergency actually. I don't know if it actually works though.
I've used it before and I think it has worked, but I also like to just mega dose vitamin C when I feel symptoms
You know you
coming
can
on.
get kidney stones when you do that.
Yeah, but when I say mega dose, like for me, a mega dose is like the average person's vitamin C intake. You know, I
Yeah, but
might.
you don't
take-
drink enough water. You know that, right?
Yeah, I never drink enough water.
So that's bad. So when you have vitamin C, you gotta watch.
Well, when I'm
Otherwise,
coming
when you
down
pee,
with
when you pee, it's gonna sound like jingle bells in the toilet.
yeah. When I'm coming down with something, I pay attention to all the little things that I don't pay attention to on a regular basis, and hydration is definitely one of them because that's another thing too. I mean, if I feel like I'm coming down with a cold or something, and I, super hydrate myself, plus, have tea, have a ton of vitamin C. I also like to do a lot of blueberries and stuff like that for antioxidants and everything. Usually when I do that, I notice, most of the times if I am going to get sick, the symptoms are a lot less extreme. So I pay attention to all that then usually. But yeah, on a regular daily basis, like I slack with the water a little bit. I don't regularly
A little?
supplement. Depends on the day, honestly. It's weird. Some days I could go by drinking half a gallon of water, then the next day drink a gallon and a half, no problem. It's just I'm very inconsistent with that. I'm one of those, like the skinny kids who always say they're not hungry. I'm like one of those kids, except for I'm like the skinny
You're
kid who
always
doesn't
hungry?
like to drink. Yeah, I'm always hungry. I am always hungry, but I'm never thirsty. Like that's me.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate this time of year so much though. I hate the winter. I keep saying it. I'm gonna move to Florida and I'm gonna make it happen soon, man, because I can't stand it anymore. I really can't. Everything slows down. Like it takes forever to warm up. Can you imagine if you lived in California where it's the temperature's year round, same pretty much?
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean,
It'd be really nice.
I really
Never
love.
get sick.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is it's just pretty much you're looking at the same, more or less the same consistent weather. New York goes through some crazy mood swings with the weather. It's a little bit bipolar.
It snowed the other day here, and that was really depressing. I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Who shoveled a nice path to your gym?
My wife.
Yeah. Okay. If that's what you want to call me, fine. But
Yeah, I put Big Pete to work. I was like, Pete, can you do me a favor? Can you shovel the path quick?
that's how he greets me when I come over.
Yeah. Hey Pete, here's a shovel. Do me a favor. Shovel
Yeah,
this
take this
side.
shovel and clean this shit up.
Yeah. Dude, there was no fucking snow on the ground.
know.
It took you a second to
know.
do.
It did.
I know.
That's because I did it all with my biceps.
So what else is going on, man? Anything new in your life? Oh, anything new with the women?
The women is always the women, man.
All right. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It is what it is pretty much what I'm saying. I mean,
Never likes to tell me anything.
What do you want me to tell you? You want to have you want me to lie down on the couch?
No, I'm not asking you to lie down on the couch. Why would I ask you that?
When you go into a therapist's office, lie down on the couch and tell. That's what I mean. You want me to lie
I
down?
thought you were being perverted.
No, dude. See, there's
Yeah,
a clear sign he's never seen the inside of a therapist's office. We have one healthy co-host on this show. I've
Yep.
seen inside of many therapist office in my life.
I wonder why, my friend. You're a little nuts on all ends. Well, I don't know. I'm excited about this episode because, like you said, we talked about contest prep here and we did the round table with Jeff Nippard. He was a good guy. He's so jacked, but he's so short.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it counts.
You know what it is? He has one of those frames where his proportions are so extreme because the size of his frame. I don't know how tall he is.
I think he's like 5'4", dude.
Yeah, he's very short. But his muscles are like his joints. He's got small joints. He's got a small frame, but he has very, very big, long muscle bellies. So they fill out his small frame like very, very well. So it makes him appear like if he were like a 5. I don't know how much he weighs, but if he were like about a 5'10", 5'11" male, he'd have like the muscle mass of, you know, a 225-pound lean bodybuilder.
Yeah, easily.
So he's got a very good look for, I like to call them the YouTube muscles, and I guess you could call them the Instagram muscles. He has nice proportions that look good on camera, really good.
Yes, he does. All right, well, let's get on with this podcast here. We did 2 parts of this. We only are including one of the parts in here. I believe it's part 1 or part 2. We'll mention in the intro here, but go back and scroll, and you could find out the second part of it. I believe it's either 54 or 52. So if you guys are curious to what happens after, just scroll on back down the feed, and you'll find it. All right, let's take this commercial break, and we'll be right back.
But I'll tell you what, when I'm done, my biceps are humongous. Humongous. Like that bang.
My name is Anthony Bevilacqua, and I'm the host of New York Muscle Radio podcast. My arms have been a weak point for years. When I started training, my arms measured 11 inches. Even after many years of hardcore training, nothing would get them to grow. With the help of my co-host, Big E, we set out on a mission to gain 1 solid inch to my arms in 12 weeks.
In the greatest experiment of all.
12 weeks later, this program finally helped me get 18-inch arms. The 12-week arm experiment, the ultimate arm growth program, ebook, the audio book, and the workout video. Pick up your copy now on NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. All right, guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 53. We're on the line here with Jeff. Jeff, say your last name, bud, before I butcher it.
Try it.
Nippard?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, Nippard.
There we go. I didn't want to say it wrong, you know? But this guy's a beast. I mean, if you guys know who he is, you should definitely find him on Facebook. Look him up. He's a beast. He's a natural pro bodybuilder, powerlifter, the whole 9. And he's a complete beast. So today's roundtable is going to be awesome. We're doing a contest prep roundtable with Jeff. So he's had a ton of clients who've competed before, so he has a lot of experience. Like we said, he's a natural pro. And I also got on the line of Pete. I almost forgot to introduce you, bud. My mind's nowhere today.
That's all right. I know it's one of those days for you. It's one of those days for me too. I've been up since about 5 o'clock this morning. We're doing this at about 8:30, so I'm ready for bed anytime soon. So when this is over, lights out for me.
But no excuse. We get it done anyway.
No,
right?
we still get it done.
So do you want to just jump right into this? Or, Jeff, you know what? Introduce yourself to people who might not know you.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, like you said, my name is Jeff Nippard. I'm a WNBF pro natural bodybuilder. I also compete as a powerlifter in my off season. So for that, I compete in the IPF. I guess in the US, that would be the USAPL. Here in Canada, it's the CPU. So yeah, I kind of switch back and forth between the two of those. Bodybuilding is kind of like my first love, but then in the off season, I really like to be competitive. So powerlifting sort of gives me that competitive outlet, kind of keeps me motivated. So in terms of lifts in powerlifting, I've managed a 502-pound squat, 353-pound bench press, and a 545-pound deadlift, all at around 165 pounds. So some pretty decent numbers.
I didn't realize
as a
you were that
powerlifter.
light, man. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So when I compete in bodybuilding, I typically compete around 150 pounds, and then I'm competing in powerlifting in my off season. So I'm usually around 165. So
How
for us,
tall are you?
I'm 5'4.5".
Oh, okay, because you're an absolute beast. When you see, I thought you were like our height. I thought you were like around 5'10", 5'11", because you look really tall. Your pictures, you're an absolute monster. And now to see that you're doing lifts like that, man, Pete, do we even lift?
Yeah, I know, right? He's lifting at 165. He's lifting weights that I don't lift at like 185. So
Yeah, that's good, man. How long you been training? How many years you been at this?
Well, I'm 25 now. I started when I was 15, so it's been like a solid 10 years. My dad got me into weightlifting when I was pretty young. He was always into bodybuilding, so there was always kind of like bodybuilding magazines and stuff around the house. So he kind of brought me into the bro sphere of things, and then from there I kind of graduated onto a more scientific-based approach. When I got into my undergrad. So that's kind of another thing. I also have a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry, so I try to kind of meld that interest with the bodybuilding, as you know, a lot of guys are doing these days or trying to do anyway. So yeah, it's been about 10 years, and I think a lot of people don't realize, like, especially when they see my pics and stuff, they're like, "Wow, like you have crazy development," and like I'm still a young guy, but I've got a solid 10 years of lifting experience under my belt. So, my muscles have had a bit of time to develop and mature. So,
How many years have you been competing, and then how long did it take you to win your pro card?
I did my first contest in 2009. I was 19, and then I did 2010. Then I won the Canadian Nationals in 2012, 3 years later. The Junior Canadian Nationals, that's the drug-tested stream here in Canada. And then it was in 2014 that I turned pro 5 years later. So I had, I think, 5 years of competition experience under my belt before I turned pro. And I turned pro at the WMBF Muscle Mayhem in California.
Against a big show.
So, yeah, it was some pretty good competition. So, that was kind of the show that I was most familiar with. So I wanted to go to the kind of the biggest show. Being from Canada, there isn't a lot of opportunity here, especially on the East Coast, for natural bodybuilders. So yeah, my girlfriend and I made a full vacation of it, went to Cali, and I ended up taking the whole show. So that was kind of just like a massive dream come true for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really big show. I know that. That's a really big show. Cool. So this is perfect then, because did you compete in pro as a pro yet, or no, not yet?
Yeah, I actually did my pro debut just about a month ago, actually. So I actually drove down. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. My girlfriend and I did a little road trip down to New Haven.
Okay.
And yeah. So I guess pretty close to you guys, right?
Yeah, my wife actually works in Connecticut, so we're
Right.
in like New York, so it's not too far away.
Yeah. So yeah, I did my pro debut there. I ended up placing second in the lightweight class behind a guy who has, I think he told me like 20 years of competition experience. So he just had, a ton up on me in terms of muscle maturity and density.
Yeah,
I think
you can't beat that.
He was like 22 pounds heavier than me on stage and still in the same weight class as me. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah, I even just to kind of hold my own with the elite caliber of competition that was at that show, I was really proud about that and pleased with the package I brought.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's awesome. Sounds really cool, man. And especially the drive. How long was the drive?
The drive was, I think it ended up taking us 12 hours. So on the way down, we just did it in one fell swoop. And then on the way back, we broke it up into two days. I think we stayed overnight in Bangor, Maine. That's kind of like the halfway point. And then we finished up the rest of the trip the next day. So it was like Sunday. We were just like eating donuts and like leftover Cheesecake Factory stuff like in the car on the way back. So I was just loving life. I didn't mind the drive back at all.
Yeah, because now you were more relaxed, especially with the second place under your belt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so I think we'll jump right into this. I think leads us right into the podcast today. We get a lot of questions about contest prep between online clients and people from the podcast. So we figured we'd just do a round table, with you, since you have so much pro experience too, and just contest experience in general. I figure us three, we have a lot of contests under our belt. So, all right, so let's get right into this. So Jeff, how do you assess how many weeks out a client should start dieting?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. We're gonna have to talk about this one for a while because there's kind of a lot to get into there. So for me, I think that there's obviously no set number. Like you need 30 weeks or you only need 16 weeks or whatever. People will throw around those numbers, and it seems like the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. Like back when I first started competing, anything over a 12-week cut, it was like, oh, you're crazy. You're just going to lose muscle. Like that's way too long. You'll over diet. You know what I mean? Whereas now it seems like the shift has kind of like turned the other way, where a lot of the drug-free guys anyway are favoring longer and longer preps, where you have guys prepping for like 6 months, 8 months, a full year. And some of these guys aren't even out of shape in their off season. So for me personally, I think that there's a balance to be struck kind of between those two extremes. But overall, it's going to depend on the individual. And, mostly it's going to depend on, first of all, their body fat percentage at the end of their off season, right? If you get too out of shape at the end of your off season, then you're going to have to diet for longer, right? That's just the way it goes. If you're in shape, then I don't see any reason to drag out your contest prep for longer than you need to get lean, right? Just because that's in vogue right now or whatever. It all kind of starts with the off season. For guys, I tend to say, stay between 15 to 25 pounds over your contest weight. For females, it's somewhere between 10 to 15 pounds over. And as long as you're in that range, then you should be able to get in shape within a reasonable time frame. So somewhere between, say, 16 to 24 weeks. Some people are going to need longer preps, and there are pros to having a longer prep and there are cons to having a longer prep. If you want me to get into this, I can kind of pick apart, because that's kind of how I like to do things. I don't like to say this is the number that I go for people, and this is what works best for most people. I like to say, everyone is different, not only physiologically but also psychologically, and so some people are more able to handle a longer contest prep psychologically. Other people, it may just not even be worth it to them. Like, you have to consider that that's 6 months of your life that you could potentially be living at, suboptimally in terms of your relationships and your work and all that kind of stuff. It just might not be worth it to you. So there are all sorts of things that can feed into this, and I think it'll be difficult to land on like one solid answer. But I think that, like, if we just wanted to run with an example, say, you have a bikini competitor who finishes her off season at 115 pounds and she wants to get in shape, contest shape at, say, 100 pounds. She's got 15 pounds to lose. I tend to like, a 0.5 to 1% of your body weight in loss per week, right? I think that's pretty reasonable. So for a guy who's 200 pounds, that would be 1 to 2 pounds per week. For the bikini competitor example, it's 0.5 pound to 1 pound a week. So if she's got 15 pounds to lose, then I don't think it's, unreasonable to give her 15 to 20 weeks to get ready, try to shed 1 pound a week, and, see what she can bring there. Some people might say, well, she might want a little bit of extra time in case she stalls, in which case you can do a diet break, or maybe you can try to get her ready early, so give her a little bit of an extra buffer time so that maybe you can refeed her into the show or reverse diet for a little bit into the show. But I don't think that's always necessarily the answer, because, like I said, there's not just a physiological consideration, there's also the psychological consideration. And if this is someone who is going to be likely to potentially burn out after 24 weeks of prep, then that's, obviously not going to be as optimal as doing a little bit of a shorter and sweeter prep, right? So to kind of, I guess, get back to your question, how do I determine it? I guess the main metric would be, first of all, if they've competed before, that gives you a lot of information. So it's like, give me your stage photos. What did you look like last time? How long did you diet for last time? What were your macros like last time? And that can give you a pretty good ballpark. If they didn't get quite in shape last time and they were on these macros for this long, then they're probably going to need a little bit longer and maybe a little bit lower macros or whatever, right? So that's a good thing. If it's a complete newbie, then their first time competing, then you've kind of just got to, in my opinion, look at it visually and kind of see where they are and think, is this person in a good position to be stage ready in 20 weeks? And if not, then I think as a coach, it's important to kind of let them know that in the softest way possible and not begin a prep that you're not ready to begin. So yeah, I guess that's what I would have to say about that. You guys have anything to add there?
Well, actually, I want to touch on a couple of things.
Yeah,
you mentioned
sure.
in the beginning, you said, how it first started with 12 weeks of dieting and then it slowly mitigated to higher weeks. And it's funny because I happen to agree with you. When I first started dieting, it was like 12 weeks or 16 weeks was like max. No one dieted any more than that, And I think it also has to do with how lean competitors are getting now. And I think that the science of everything and just the application of all this stuff has changed so much. Now we understand, a longer diet's going to preserve more muscles. You're going to be able to eat more calories. If you go back and think about it, those 12-week diets that, I've done, I'm sure Pete's done. I don't know if you did, but at one point, I'm sure we all touched on those. They're very, very strict. And you want to talk about losing muscle. Yeah, you're going to lose a lot of muscle following one of those because they're very low carb, very restrictive. I mean, you guys have been there, so you know what I'm talking about. Right, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, between what you guys both just mentioned, there's really not much to add to that. Like you said, when I first started competing, I did my first show in 2009. I did a 12-week diet that was kind of typical at that time, 12 to 16 weeks. Those 12-week diets are basically, compared to what, is normal now, that's just considered basically a crash diet. And that's not really something that I recommend to anybody unless, of course, like you guys mentioned, if you're already pretty close to contest stage conditioning in the off season, you don't really have much to lose, then 12 weeks could be enough time for you. But in general, if you're staying 15, 20 pounds above your contest weight, which is pretty much optimal, I think, for most males to put on muscle, you're going to need longer than 12 weeks to diet down. So, sometimes being able to diet down that fast is a good thing, but it might not be optimal for the off season. So you got to have that balance. And in general, I'd like to say longer preps are going to be a little bit better than shorter.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would say my minimum lately that I've given was I'd like to see someone around 20 weeks. I think that's a good starting point. And I think it's always good. It's always better. And for the listener, I hope they take this away. It's always better to start earlier and be ready earlier. So this way you could kind of refeed into the show. I think that's probably your best bet. If you give yourself an extra 4 weeks at the end to kind of fill out, I think they'll really, really bring your biggest package. I mean, and we learned about that, Pete, in that episode we did with reverse dieting, remember? I forgot what his name was.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to note too from getting ready ahead of time is the dramatic difference your physique can look in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks of refeeding versus just getting stage ready within the last week. When you're suffering dieting into that show and you're a week out and you're having to pull the carbs really, really low just to get that last bit of fat off, you're going to look completely different than if you got ready 2 or 3 weeks out and you started to introduce a little bit more calories. You fed the competitor a little bit more. So getting ready ahead of time is definitely going to be a good thing.
Yeah. I agree. I think that I agree that longer is better. And I do actually set, generally speaking, a 20 week minimum to work with someone who wants to prep under me, just because it sometimes can take a couple of weeks just to get to know what their metabolism is like and kind of learn how they respond to different things in terms of nutrition and training. So I like to have that little bit of extra buffer, even if I don't think they might necessarily need 20 weeks to get ready. I'd still rather have that as kind of like a minimum just to be safe. But I also don't think that longer is better. I do think you can push it too far and you can over diet. And, I feel like I experienced a little bit of this with my last prep. It was quite different than my prep for the Mayhem when I actually turned pro. For that show, I only did about a 14-week diet, which was actually the longest I had ever done. And then for this show, I did a 20-week diet, so 6 extra weeks of dieting. And what I found was that in the 14-week prep, by the end of it, I even though my conditioning was at least as good or perhaps even better at the Muscle Mayhem show where I turned pro than in my first pro show, I didn't feel quite as burnt out psychologically by the end of it. And I think that that's what some people don't consider with the really long, dragged out preps, is that when you're dedicating 6 months of your life to being in a caloric deficit, that can really kind of play on your mind. And that's not necessarily a reason to be like, oh, well, you should do something that's suboptimal just because you can't handle it psychologically or whatever. If you want to be the best, then yeah, push it. Do the longer prep, right? But I think that if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do the long, say 20+ week prep, then you've got to set yourself up for success in the off season. And that means that if you're going to be dieting for 4 to 6 months, you can't be competing every year. It just doesn't make sense because you won't give yourself enough time to actually recover, to allow, to get your food intake back up, get yourself to feel normal psychologically again, and just kind of reset everything. And I find that some people who try to compete too often, just like show after show, this sort of constant being in a caloric deficit can be obviously detrimental to them people. So I would probably advise against doing long preps back to back, especially. And if you're going to do the long prep, then you've got to make sure that you're there mentally for it ahead of time.
Agree. Also, make sure that I just want to touch upon this. Just make sure that you don't have anything planned, your wedding or things like that, because like you said, 6 months of dieting is 6 months of your life. And I was gonna do a show 2 years ago. My wife got pregnant, so that went out the window because I was not gonna diet while she was pregnant. I really wanted to enjoy that and be in the moment, not be a zombie. All right, so let's move on now. So this is kind of perfect transition because you touched upon it a little bit, Jeff. So,
Yeah.
Pete, we'll start with you on this one. So, what's the best process to starting a contest dieting and ending an off season? So, when you're ready, just about ready to jump into contest prep, what's the best process there?
Yeah, well, the best way to actually enter a contest prep is to know ahead of time and plan accordingly. You know, a lot of times people want to do a show and their off season might not be tailored to an optimal contest prep. You know, you have the typical bodybuilder who says, "Oh, I want to stay lean this off season. I'm going to keep my carbs low. I'm going to make my contest diet easier."
Pete.
No, not this time around, man. But, you know, and doing that, it sounds good, you know, in theory. Stay lean so you make your contest prep easier. But what you could actually be doing is making your contest prep harder by not optimizing your off season, which we talk about a lot. And the best way to kind of transition is, at least for a period of a few months before you start dieting, bringing your calories and your carbohydrates up as high as possible while you're still staying relatively lean. You know, if you have to sacrifice staying a little bit lean, putting on a little bit of extra weight, but it means your metabolism is going to be much faster, then it's definitely going to make your contest prep transition much easier. So the best way, you know, I like to go about it, and somebody I'm working with in the off season before contest prep, is plan contest prep before you start contest prep. Don't just start it, right when you're deciding you want to do the show. You should have an idea in the off season when you want to start it. That way, you know, okay, by the time I start contest prep, have a goal to shoot for in terms of how many calories you're taking in, how much, you know, where you're improving your metabolism by that time. So the best way to do it is to ramp up the calories first, you know, in a controlled manner, so you're not putting on a ton of body fat, and then slowly transitioning into contest prep. You know, a lot of people make the mistake. They go from having a lot of carbs, a lot of calories in the off season. When they enter contest prep, you know, whether it's a 16-week contest prep or 20-week or 12-week, they might just go from eating 500 grams of carbs, and I've even seen people go straight to a ketogenic diet, you know, starting contest prep on Monday, which is, that's absolutely insane. But believe it or not, I've seen that more often than not. You know, a lot of people just think, okay, if I start this ketogenic diet, it's going to get me in shape. When the reality of it is, you're going to actually sabotage everything you've been working for in the off season, and you're going to stall out very fast. So, you know, just to sum it up keep it very simple, you want to maximize your off season, bring your calories up as high as possible, then slowly transition to a longer contest prep.
So, Jeff, based on that, so where would you start a client now? So let's just say Pete came to you and he's consuming Pete's normal off-season numbers, like, you know, 2,000 calories, right, Pete?
Well, just to give you guys more of an example, I guess, if you want to roll with this. So, like, right now I'm eating about 3,600 calories or so. You know, my carbs are about just under about 500, fats are about 90 grams, proteins about 240, 250, something like that. So for me, I consider that pretty high in the off season. It's nothing crazy, but I would say it's sufficient enough to transition into a dieting phase.
So what did you say your calories were, Pete? I missed it.
About 3,600 a day.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what? If you were going to start a contest prep, and I can tell from you that you prefer the sort of like slow and steady type approach, then yeah, I think that we should start off fairly gradual. In terms of deficit, normally I like a 10% caloric deficit, or maybe a little bit more, to get things going, especially if you're kind of like pushing the top end of your caloric capacity with 3,600 calories. I'd probably
Which you're not, by the way, but that's a whole other story. No, he's not.
Let's just assume he is. I would be if I was around there. So yeah, I would probably drop you down to something like 3,000, right? Like cut 500-600 calories to get things moving. If we overshoot, we can always, you know, add a few carbs back in or whatever. But I don't like to be aggressive, like you said. I don't like to slash, you know, 1,000 calories or more off the bat. And that's when you see all the metabolic slowdown, and you can kind of crash your prep out in a hurry if you do things too drastically too soon. And by the same token, I think you can drag it out a little bit too long, where it's like you're 4 weeks deep into prep, you haven't lost any weight yet. It's like, what were you doing for the last 4 weeks? Like, you could have been dropping some fat. So yeah,
that sucks. All right, I mean, I have to agree based on what you guys said. I really can't add anything into that, so I guess I'm an asshole in this one, huh? I'm not.
You get to start on the next one.
All right, so now the next topic: what is the best macro ratio for contest prep? So I'll hand this over to myself. Obviously, there is not one best ratio for anything. You know, contest prep, off season, you know, there's not one best for everyone. Everyone's different, and everyone's going to respond to things differently. And I think that finding that magical ratio for you happens more so in the off season. The off season is where you really figure out your body and figure out what's working for you. If you're a type of person who responds well to higher carbohydrates, then, for contest prep, same thing. Whatever built muscle is going to maintain it. So try to keep your metabolism going and keep the carbs as high as possible, throughout the whole time. So that's going to work for you. I don't give out a specific macro ratio for someone. Generally, I like to keep, protein around a gram to 1.25 grams per pound of body weight. I mean, that's just a general rule. I use around 20 to 30% of like total calories from fat, and then I usually like to fill in the rest with carbs. But again, it really depends. If someone gets me their blood work, and you could see, based on their blood work, if they respond better to a little more fat, I would add in some more fat there. But that's generally where I like to start. But again, this would have happened in the off season. If someone just came to me and we didn't even know what their macros were, I probably wouldn't start there. It'd be based off what they were eating and then just adjust as we go. But that's just how I do it. What about you guys? What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty much dead on with my approach there as well. For the protein, yeah, sometimes I'll even scale it up a little bit higher than that. I would rather err on the side of having a little bit too much in prep than having not quite enough. It just seems to me like, at worst, it's just going to get turned into carbs and used as energy anyway. Yeah. So I'd rather err on the side of safety. I sometimes will go as high as like 1.4 grams per pound. But that would be considered high, for science-minded folks like myself. But yeah, I always just like to play it safe when it comes to that.
Me and Pete were talking about, actually, me and Pete are similar in approaches how we do this. We actually give out a little higher protein intake in the off season because, a lot of your calories are coming from carbs, and you're going to have that protein that comes from the carbs, the indirect sources of protein that's going to, we feel like you need a little bit more. So in the off season, we'll actually have a higher protein intake than when we diet down. Usually.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's the same sort of approach that Cliff Wilson takes, maybe for different reasons. But he increases the protein after a contest. That's something I will do myself, actually, because protein is very satiating, so it can help with diet adherence. And then also there is some research from John Boss. It's called protein change theory. It shows that like if you're accustomed to a certain level of protein intake and then you increase that, it's not necessarily like the total amount of protein that you're taking in, but the change. So Cliff says, when transitioning from pre-contest or ending a contest season to off-season, he likes to bump protein up for that reason as well.
That's interesting. I didn't hear that. Did you ever hear about that, Pete?
No, not really. I mean, like you said, I do like to take my protein and usually increase it a little bit versus contest numbers, but my reasoning, like Anthony said, for that usually is because when you start adding in all those extra calories, the amount of actual protein sources you're going to be consuming is going to be lowered if your total protein intake is the same.
What's up, guys? It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, New York Muscle Radio here. I'm going to cut this episode short. I'm going to kind of leave you guys hanging because this contest prep roundtable, this discussion is really, really heating up. There's a lot of nuggets in this one and a lot of useful information here. So we're going to cut this off right here and we're going to jump right back into it. So there's going to be a second part to this episode. So be sure to look out for the download. Subscribe to us on iTunes so you can get the update when it comes out. But until next time, guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, New York Muscle Radio.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.